just never forget. We saw that fall inside. Echoes forever.
Daniel Graves had never wanted to return to his uncle's house. The place stood at the edge of the countryside, hidden behind dying trees and rusting fences. It had been sealed in silence for decades, like a tomb waiting for someone foolish enough to disturb it. Now, after his divorce, after losing almost everything that mattered, Daniel had nowhere else to go. The house was the only thing left to his name. He stepped inside on a gray afternoon. The floor groaned under his weight, the air heavy with dust and the faint smell of mold. Curtains hung like tattered rags. Time had not touched the furniture, only smothered it under a blanket of cobwebs. Yet there was something deeper in the silence, something watching. His uncle had died years ago, a bitter man who had lived here alone, warning everyone never to touch the basement. Daniel remembered that basement door from childhood, boards nailed across it, chains locking it shut, and his uncle's stern voice, "Never go down there, boy, not for any reason." Now, standing in the hallway, Daniel's eyes drifted toward the same door. It sat at the far end like a scar in the house. The wood was warped, the lock rusted, but the chains still clung stubbornly to the frame. He shook his head, muttering, "It's just a basement," but something in his chest tightened. That night, Daniel lay in the dusty guest room, staring at the ceiling. The house shifted around him, timbers creaking, pipes sighing. He told himself it was natural, but then came another sound, a low scratching, from beneath the floorboards. At first he froze, ears straining. Maybe a raccoon, maybe rats. But then 3 knocks, slow, hollow, as if coming from the other side of a door. Daniel sat up, heart pounding. The sound faded. Silence swallowed the room again. He tried to laugh it off, but his mouth was dry. Sleep never came easy that night. By dawn, he told himself it was loneliness playing tricks, the mind filling silence with noise. But deep down, he knew something was waiting behind that sealed door. The second night was worse. Daniel tried to distract himself. He cleaned the kitchen, lit a few candles, even turned on the old radio, though it only spat static. Still, when the house grew quiet, the sound came again. Scratch, scratch, then silence. He gripped the armrest of the dusty chair. "It's just mice," he muttered. His voice sounded small in the hollow room, but then he heard it, a whisper, soft, broken. "Daniel!" He froze. The radio hissed in the background, but the sound hadn't come from it. No, it had come from beneath the floor, from the direction of the basement. His mouth went dry. He turned toward the hall. From where he sat, he could just see the end of it, the outline of the chained basement door. "Daniel, help me." The voice was faint, muffled, as though pressed through wood and time itself. It was impossible. The basement had been sealed for 30 years. No one could be inside. No one should be inside. Daniel stood on trembling legs. Each step toward the door felt heavier, as though the house itself resisted his movement. He reached the doorframe, staring at the boards nailed across, the rusted lock, the ancient chains. He pressed his ear against the cold wood. For a long moment, nothing, only silence and the thudding of his own heartbeat. Then, "Please," Daniel stumbled back, almost tripping over himself. No, I'm just hearing things," he said. His hands shook. "I haven't slept right in weeks. My head's playing games." He returned to the guest room and slammed the door shut, but the whisper stayed with him inside his ears, inside his chest. That night, he dreamed of the basement. He dreamed of standing at the door, unlocking the chains, opening it to reveal nothing but endless blackness. From the darkness, a hand had reached out, thin, pale fingers curling toward him. He woke in a sweat, gasping, clutching the blanket as though it might save him. The clock read 3:07 a.m. Somewhere in the house, the floor creaked, and faintly, just faintly, "Danny." The morning light did little to calm him. Daniel sat at the kitchen table with a cup of bitter coffee, staring at the basement door down the hall. The The sunlight revealed the dust floating in the air, but it didn't chase away the memory of that whisper. His mind kept circling the same thought. If the house was sealed, who could be calling me? He tried to reason. Maybe it was the wind slipping through cracks. Maybe an echo of his own voice, bouncing strangely in the empty rooms. But deep down, he knew the truth. His name had been spoken. By noon, he had unpacked a few things, hoping routine would ground him. He set up his books on a shelf, tried fixing the broken lamp, even walked outside to clear his head. The yard was overgrown, branches clawing at the windows like fingers. The silence of the countryside felt heavier than city noise ever had. Inside, every corner of the house carried memory. His uncle's old study, untouched for years, smelled of tobacco and damp wood. Papers lay scattered on the desk. Most were nonsense, receipts, unpaid bills, but one page caught his eye. It was a note, scrawled in his uncle's sharp handwriting. Never answer the voice. It is not who you think it is. Daniel froze, reading it again and again. His stomach sank. He stuffed the note into his pocket and left the study, heart pounding harder with every step. That night, he tried drowning the silence with music from his phone. He lay in bed, headphones pressed tight, volume up. But even through the music, he swore he could hear it, faint, seeping through. "Daniel, you know me?" He ripped the headphones off. "No." His voice cracked. He was talking to himself again, arguing with shadows. He paced the room until exhaustion took him. When he finally collapsed into bed, the dream returned. This time, he stood at the basement door with his hand on the chain. The wood pulsed beneath his fingers like living skin. And on the other side, the whisper was clearer, stronger. "I've been waiting for you." Daniel jerked awake, sweat dripping down his face. His chest rose and fell in shallow gasps. He listened. First, only silence. Then, from the hall, 3 slow knocks against the basement door. Daniel didn't move. The knocks echoed through the empty house, each one slow, deliberate, heavy with patience. He sat frozen on the edge of the bed, staring at the hallway where shadows pooled. His throat was dry. His mind screamed at him to stay put, but his body rose anyway, like a puppet pulled by invisible strings. Step by step, he walked down the hall. The floorboards creaked beneath his bare feet. The air grew colder, as if the house itself held its breath. The basement door stood ahead, waiting. The boards across it seemed weaker now, as if they had shifted in the night. The chains rattled faintly on their own. Daniel whispered, "Who's there?" His voice cracked in the silence. For a moment, nothing. Then, "It's me." The voice was softer this time, not just a whisper, but tender, familiar. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His heart hammered painfully, because it didn't sound like a stranger. It sounded like his mother who had died when he was only 12. He staggered back, pressing a hand to his forehead. "No, that's not possible. That's not." "Daniel?" The voice quivered now, dripping with sorrow. "Please, I've been trapped so long. Don't leave me here." Tears stung his eyes before he could stop them. The sound was too real, too close to the memories he had buried deep. He could see her face in his mind, the softness of her smile, the warmth of her voice. But then he remembered the note. Never answer the voice. Daniel's breath quickened. He backed away, shaking his head, whispering to himself, "It's not her. Can't be her. It's something else." The chains rattled harder, the boards groaning against the doorframe. The voice shifted again, lower now, pleading, almost breaking. "You don't believe me, but you will. Let me out, Daniel. Please, I need you." His body trembled, torn between grief and dread. He pressed his palms to his ears, trying to shut it out. But the whisper wasn't just in his ears anymore. It was inside his head, wrapping around his thoughts. "You know me. You've always known me." Daniel stumbled back into his room and slammed the door shut, chest heaving. He locked it, even though he knew locks meant nothing against a voice that seeped through walls. All night, he sat awake in the corner, knees drawn to his chest, whispering to himself like a man on the edge. And still, through the silence, the voice came soft, patient, unending. Daniel, let me out. The days blurred into each other. Daniel hardly left the house. He ate little, slept less. Every night, the whisper returned, weaving through the dark halls like smoke. Sometimes it begged. Sometimes it wept. Sometimes it laughed softly, like someone remembering an old secret. And every time it called his name, Daniel tried to resist. He played loud music, left the TV on, even stuffed tissues in his ears. Nothing worked. The voice always found a way back in. By the third night, he began to wonder if he was losing his mind. Maybe the divorce, the loneliness, the silence of the house had cracked something inside him. Maybe this was all just him, talking to himself through the dark. But a discovery in his uncle's study silenced that thought. He had been digging through drawers, hoping for answers. Most of what he found were unpaid bills, yellowed photographs, and stacks of dust-choked books. But hidden in the back of the desk was a box. Inside, old newspaper clippings, carefully folded, each one brittle with age. Daniel read them under the dim lamp, his hands shaking. Local girl vanishes, 1989. Two brothers disappear in woods, 1991. Another mystery haunts town, 1992. Different names, different families, always the same year range. And every article mentioned the same thing. The disappearances stopped after his uncle sealed the basement. Daniel felt his stomach twist. His uncle had been questioned back then. People whispered. Some believed he had something to do with it. But no charges were ever filed. The case went cold. He stared at the stack of articles, his pulse loud in his ears. Could it be? Someone was trapped down there all this time? Was that why his uncle chained the door? As if on cue, the voice floated up from the basement again, softer, almost tender. You see now, don't you? He locked me away. He left me to rot. But you, Daniel, you can help me. Daniel's mouth went dry. His heart thudded painfully. He wanted to scream that it wasn't real, that this was madness. But another thought pushed through the noise. What if someone really was inside? What if all these years, his uncle had hidden them away? Daniel pressed his hands against his face, trembling. His uncle's warning note echoed in his mind. Never answer the voice. But how long could he resist, when the house itself seemed to want him to obey? The following night, Daniel sat in the living room with the clippings spread across the table. The lamplight flickered, shadows bending across the walls. His hands trembled as he reread each headline. Disappearances, questions, silence. The voice had fallen quiet for hours, but he knew it was waiting, watching. Then, as the clock struck midnight, it returned. Daniel, he shut his eyes. Go away. But this time it didn't sound distant, muffled by wood and chains. It sounded close, warm. Danny, it's me. His chest tightened. The voice wasn't his mother's anymore. It was Claire's, his ex-wife. Daniel gripped the edge of the table until his knuckles turned white. No, you're not her. Please, Danny, the voice whispered, trembling with tears. You know me. You know my voice. Don't leave me down here. You still love me, don't you? His stomach lurched. He wanted to deny it, to scream at the air, but the sound was perfect. Every note of her voice, every inflection, even the way she used to beg when their marriage was falling apart. He stumbled to his feet, pacing. You're not real. You're not real. But then came another voice, softer, higher. Daddy. Daniel froze. His heart stopped. It was a child's voice now, thin, fragile. Daddy, it's so dark. I'm scared. He pressed both hands over his ears, shaking his head violently. Stop it. Stop it. The house shuddered as if something deep beneath the floor was laughing. The whisper crawled inside his mind no matter how hard he fought. He slammed his fist against the wall. Who are you? His voice cracked, raw with desperation. Silence. Then calmly, almost lovingly, I am everyone you've ever lost. Daniel's legs weakened. He sank to the floor, rocking back and forth, whispering to himself like a prayer. It's not real. It's not real. It's not. But deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. If it wasn't real, why did it know so much? Why did it sound so familiar? And worst of all, why was he starting to feel less afraid of it? And more afraid of being alone without it? Daniel didn't remember falling asleep, but when he opened his eyes, the house was drowned in night. The lamp had burned out, leaving the room in a suffocating gloom. At first, he thought the silence had returned, but then he saw it, movement. A shadow stretched across the floor, sliding out from beneath the basement door. Long, thin, reaching like a hand. Daniel's breath hitched. He blinked hard, rubbed his eyes, but the shadow remained. It slithered across the floorboards, curling toward him. He stumbled back, heart racing, until his shoulder slammed into the wall. "This isn't real," he whispered. "I'm dreaming." But then came the voice. "Why do you run from me?" The shadow twitched, fingers clawing across the wood. Daniel bolted into the hallway, flicking on every light he passed. The bulbs buzzed weakly, barely cutting into the dark. The house felt alive now, breathing with him, pulsing with something beneath the floor. He locked himself in the bathroom, gripping the sink. His reflection in the cracked mirror was pale, sweat dripping down his face. He didn't recognize the man staring back, wild eyes, lips trembling. Behind him, through the thin walls, came a sound. Scraping, knocking, a faint rhythm, like something dragging its nails against the wood. Then his own voice. "Daniel, open the door." He spun, slamming his back against the tiles. "No, no." His voice broke. The voice laughed softly, mocking him. "You already want to. I can feel it. Every time you hear me, every time you remember their faces, you want to let me out." Daniel covered his ears, but the words seeped through, vibrating in his bones. His chest tightened until it was hard to breathe. The lights flickered. For a split second, he swore he saw someone standing in the hallway through the crack of the door. Tall, thin, head tilted at an unnatural angle. He blinked, and it was gone. Daniel slid down to the floor, rocking back and forth, whispering to himself like a prayer. "It's not real. It's not real. It's not." But deep inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. If it wasn't real, why did it know so much? Why did it sound so familiar? By the fourth night, Daniel's resistance was wearing thin. His hands shook constantly. His eyes were ringed with bruised shadows from lack of sleep. Every corner of the house seemed to breathe. Every silence seemed to whisper his name. He knew he couldn't last much longer. That was when he found it. In the study again, digging through drawers he had already searched twice. His fingers brushed against something hidden beneath the false bottom of the desk. With effort, he pried it up, and there it was. A key. Old, rusted, its teeth jagged and black with age. Attached was a brittle paper tag, written in his uncle's sharp hand. "Down." Daniel stared at it, throat dry. His uncle had hidden this key, buried it under boards, locked it away where no one would think to look. The whisper was waiting. "You found it, good." That's what he feared. That's what he tried to keep from you. Daniel clenched the key in his fist, shaking his head. "No, no, you're tricking me." "Tricking you?" the voice purred. "Or freeing you. You don't have to be alone anymore, Daniel. You don't have to live with the silence. Open the door. Set me free, and I'll set you free too." His breath came faster, chest tightening. He wanted to throw the key across the room, bury it, destroy it, but instead he slipped it into his pocket. That night, he couldn't stop himself. He stood at the end of the hallway, staring at the basement door. His fingers traced the chains, cold and rough with rust. The boards nailed across the frame looked weak now, fragile. The whisper caressed his ear, warm as breath. "You've already decided. You wouldn't be here if you hadn't. Let me out, Daniel. Please." His hand shook as he pulled out the key. It slid into the lock with a sickening ease, as if it had been waiting for him all along. Click. The chains loosened. Daniel stepped back, trembling. His breath fogged in the air. The temperature had dropped, cold sinking into his bones. The boards groaned, one falling loose onto the floor. Dust clouded the air. The voice sighed, almost in relief. Yes, that's it. Just a little more. Daniel's eyes burned with tears. God help me, he whispered. Though he didn't know if God could hear him here, he pulled the last board free. The door shuddered, wood creaking against hinges that hadn't moved in 30 years. Then, slowly, painfully, the basement door began to open. Darkness poured out like smoke, and from the black, a voice whispered with chilling delight. Finally, the darkness behind the basement door was thick, swallowing the weak light from the hallway. Daniel stood frozen at the top of the stairs, the open door gaping like the mouth of a grave. The air that seeped out was colder than winter, sharp against his skin. It smelled of rust, earth, and something sweetly rotten. For a long moment, he thought of slamming the door shut, chaining it again, pretending none of this had ever happened. But the whisper came again, gentle, coaxing. Come down, Daniel. You've already set me free. Don't leave me waiting now. His shaking hand fumbled for the lantern he had found in the closet. He lit it with trembling fingers. The weak flame sputtered, throwing shadows against the walls. Step by step, he descended. The stairs groaned under his weight. Dust and cobwebs clung to his clothes. The deeper he went, the more the air pressed down on him, heavy and damp, like he was sinking into water. At the bottom, the lantern's glow revealed the room. The basement was wide, but the walls were stained, cracked with age. Strange markings had been carved into the stone. Symbols Daniel didn't recognize, circles and lines intersecting like a cage. The floor was littered with old rope, splintered wood, and dark patches that made his stomach turn. And in the center, a chair. Its frame was rotting, but the ropes tied around it were still there, frayed, torn, as if someone had once been bound to it and had pulled themselves free. Daniel's breath caught. His uncle hadn't been hiding treasure or tools or secrets. He had been holding something prisoner. The whisper coiled around him now, filling the basement like smoke. Do you see? He kept me here. He thought he could cage me. But you, Daniel, you've given me freedom. Daniel stumbled back against the wall, the lantern shaking in his grip. What are you? His voice cracked. The shadows stretched across the room, bending toward him. The whisper deepened, shifting, as though it spoke with 1,000 voices at once. I am the voice you trust, the face you miss, the hand you long to hold. I am the hollow in your chest, the ache that never leaves. I am what you fear most, and what you desire most. Daniel's knees weakened. His mind screamed at him to run, but his body stayed rooted, because part of him already knew the truth. His uncle hadn't been protecting himself. He had been protecting Daniel. Daniel's hands shook as the lantern's weak glow flickered across the walls. The shadows seemed to pulse now, crawling across the stone, curling toward him like smoke given life. The air was thick and suffocating, carrying a whisper that spoke all at once in familiar voices. A mother's plea, a child's cry, an ex-wife's laugh. You've done it, Daniel. You freed me. You thought it would be different. You thought you were alone in this house. But I've always been here, waiting for someone like you. Daniel's heart raced. He stumbled back to the wall, feeling it against his spine as if it were the only anchor to reality. I didn't know. I didn't. The voice cut him off, smooth and chilling. You didn't know? Of course you didn't. You see, your uncle thought he could hold me. Chains, locks, would. It didn't matter. I've always been hungry. Hungry for attention, for grief, for fear. And now you've opened the door. Now I can finally speak. Daniel's stomach turned. He looked around the basement, seeing claw marks along the walls, old stains on the floor, strange symbols burned into the stone. The chair in the center seemed almost alive, as if it had been waiting for him all along. All the voices you've loved, all the faces you've missed, I am them now, and soon I will be more than that. I will be everything you fear. He wanted to drop the lantern and run, but his legs were weak. He realized with growing horror that the whispers weren't just coming from the basement. They were inside his mind. Each memory, each feeling of loss, each regret had been a key to this moment. Do you see, Daniel? I feed on your loneliness, your grief, your despair. You wanted to hear them again. And now you have. And soon you will belong to me as well. Daniel fell to his knees, trembling, lantern shaking in his hands. The temperature dropped further, cold seeping into his bones. The shadows twisted, forming shapes that resembled the faces of those he had lost, but wrong, twisted, hollow, watching him with empty eyes. A realization struck him like a blow to the chest. He hadn't just opened a door. He had released something that could never be contained. And now, the whisper shifted low and guttural, as if the air itself spoke. You will choose, or I will choose for you. Daniel's mind raced. He understood, finally, why his uncle had chained the basement so tightly. Not to hide a person, not to hide a secret, to contain this. And now the choice was his, or perhaps it never had been. Daniel ran up the stairs, heart pounding, lungs burning. He locked the basement door, threw the chains across it, and collapsed in the living room, tears streaming down his face. Morning came. Neighbors later reported the house empty, dust motes dancing in sunlight. No trace of Daniel remained. The house stood silent, waiting. Some said late at night, they could hear a faint whisper. Daniel, come back. Had Daniel been taken by his own mind? Or had something far older claimed him, leaving only silence behind? The whispers continued in the empty house, a voice with no body, no face, haunting anyone who dared approach.